بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We have another session here with Imam al-Bahuti's Umdat al-Talib, and we're still looking at options in sales. Today we're looking at option number 6, 7, and 8 to wrap up. If you were here last time, you would remember that we talked about khiyarul aib, which was the option of defect. We went into some detail in providing a number of examples to help elucidate the points mentioned by the Imam. Tonight we're going to begin with as-sadisu khiyarun fil bay'i bi-takhbir al-thaman. Okay? Khiyarun fil bay'i bi-takhbir al-thaman. The sixth type is the option due to price disclosure. Okay? And this occurs when the seller falsely informs the buyer about the original price, making it higher than it actually was. Okay, so this option here applies to what is known as bay'ul amana, bay' al-amana, or trust-based sales. And this is a category of sales in which the seller discloses the original cost of the item to the buyer and then determines the selling price based on an agreed upon method. This type of sale is built on trust. That's why it's called bay' al-amana, trust-based. It's about transparency between the contracting parties. It's a type of contract that you strike between you and another party. And there are 4 types. The first is known as murabaha. A murabaha sale is a transaction in which the price is determined by adding a profit margin to the original cost. This is when both parties know the original cost for the particular sale item, and then there's a profit margin that's added to that. Another one is known as tawliya. Tawliya sale. It's like from the wilaya of sorts. And this is a sale in which the item is sold for the same price. It's almost as if the buyer is acting for the one they're going to sell to. It's like they become a middleman acting on behalf of the other party. So they're not going to there's no profit margin here. It's sold without profit or loss. The next one is wadi'a, and this is a discounted sale. It's a sale in which the price is set below the original cost, meaning that the sale item is sold at a loss. And then there's ishtirak. This is the 4th and final category here. This is a partnership, a sale involving the transfer of a portion of a previously sold item without deviating from the aforementioned types, meaning that the partnership is going to be based on either a murabaha sale, tawliya, or wadi'a. You're going to agree on how this partnership is going to transpire. So the bay'ul amana, the trust-based sales, they can be beneficial for both parties. And there are various situations in which they can produce such benefit, and this depends on financial needs of either party as well as market conditions, and then the level of trust between them. So quickly, for example, murabaha, or this is, remember, a profit margin sale. The benefit to the seller is that it ensures a guaranteed profit, especially when the seller incurs costs for procurement, for storage, for financing, etc. It also provides a structured and transparent pricing model, reducing disputes. Benefits to the buyer include the transparency, so the buyer knows the original cost and the markup. They feel happy with that, assured that they're not being taken advantage of. It also provides an option for installment payments if agreed upon. And this is commonly used in Islamic finance today, where financial institutions buy goods and resell them at a profit instead of charging interest. Okay? Like a car dealership sells a vehicle for $15,000 but discloses that the original cost was $13,000. The buyer agrees to pay the $2,000 profit margin over a period of 12 months. Or If they couldn't afford the money, there might be a financial institution that would purchase the vehicle, like an Islamic bank. They would buy the vehicle. They'd both know that the car cost $13,000, and the bank's going to buy the vehicle and sell it to the customer for a profit margin of approximately $2,000 over an agreed upon period of time. Okay, so that's typically what you'll find today, murabaha. Tawliya, again at cost. The benefits for the seller is it's used for liquidating assets quickly without incurring a loss. It also strengthens trust and long-term business relationships with customers. Okay. Benefits to the buyer is that it allows the buyer to purchase an item at a fair market price without a profit markup. It's also ideal for businesses that want to acquire inventory without overpaying. So a trader, for example, wants to exit the electronics business. They have their own business of electronics, and they want to get out of the business, so they sell their stock of smartphones and computers, etc., the same price they paid for it, in order to recover their investment, and the person that buys it is basically going to be getting it at cost. And now they can start their business. All right? The number 3 was walbi'a. This is the discount or loss sale. It helps in clearing excess inventory or perishable goods. It can be used as a strategy to attract customers and boost future sales. Avoids the risk of depreciation or damage to unsold products. It's also beneficial to the buyer because it provides an opportunity to purchase goods below market value. And this would be helpful if you're buying in bulk. You're going to be a reseller looking to get goods at a discounted rate. So, for example, a clothing store needs to make room for new inventory. They sell at a loss for like last season's stock at 20% below cost. You come in and you make this type of arrangement. And the 4th one was ishtirak, of course, partnership. We understand this allows partial liquidation of an asset, meaning you want to cash out of some of it but not all of it, like a piece of land. You can retain partial ownership. You don't want to totally get rid of the investment, but you do need cash. And so you can operate in this particular partnership. Of course, going to be based on either that murabah or the tawliya or the wadi'a type of sale. Helps in sharing investment costs as well as risks with another party. And it provides benefits to the buyer because it gives them an opportunity to acquire partial ownership of an asset without full financial burden. They might not be able to afford the entirety of the thing, but they want to get into it. And sharing ownership may be just the ticket for them. All right, this is how you start joint business ventures, etc. So, like investors, they purchase a commercial property together. One decides to sell 50%. They want to liquidate. They can sell their share to somebody else. Or someone invests in a property and now they need to liquidate. So they say, hey, I want to sell half. Or I want you to be a partner. Right? They will use specific language. Right? I want you to be a partner in this land, which means I want you to buy it at price, the price or at cost, and you'll have 50% ownership. You would buy half of what it costs, and you would be a 50% owner. Again, this is all about developing trust between business parties, developing long-term relationships, and basically creating win-win scenarios for the buyer and the seller in the given circumstances. Right? You can set up these types of sales at your discretion. Okay? So here, in this type of sale transaction, bay'ul amana, the seller is obligated to be truthful about the original cost. If they deceive the buyer, this is what this option is all about, the buyer has the right to annul the contract. So the legal rulings vary depending on the specific type of sale within this category. So the first thing that he talks about is that it is applicable. He says, إِذَا اشْتَرَاهُ مِمَّنْ لَا تُقْبَلُ شَهَادَتُهُ لَهُ أو بأكثر من ثمنه حيلة أو لرغبة تخصه أو باع بعض الصفقة بقسطها من الثمن ونحوه ولم يبين ذلك في إخباره بثمنه فلمشتر الخيار بين رد وإمساك. So here says this is valid if purchased from one whose testimony is inadmissible for them or at an inflated price as a hila due to buyer-specific preference, or sells a part of a bulk sale based on its proportional price, and the seller fails to disclose this, the buyer may rescind or retain the sale. So let's take a quick look at what this means here before we move forward into the next section. So here the option of the khiyar bitakhbir al-thaman is valid. He says, if purchased from one whose testimony is inadmissible for them, okay, such as a father, a son, or a spouse. And what the Imam is alluding to is that I, for example, purchase, let's say I purchase a vehicle from my father. He sells it to me for $25,000, and I buy it for $25,000, and then in turn I sell it to somebody else. And so $25,000, I'm going to tell them if this is the type of sale we're going to get into. It's a murabaha sale, for example, and I say I just need $3,000 profit margin, and they go, okay, no problem. And I didn't tell them that I bought it from my father. If they come to find out that I bought it from my father, then they can rescind the sale. Or if it was from my son or a spouse or somebody that can't testify on behalf of me, because the issue here is, in this case, typically what would happen is me buying from this type of relative, I'm not going to negotiate or get the best price, typically. I wouldn't negotiate or try and get the best price that I would from my father like I would from a stranger. And so the person that I'm now selling it to needs to know that beforehand. I can say, look, I bought this from my father at this price. Because the concept is, it might not be the market price. It might be an inflated price. Because that's how it is with these types of relationships. I'm embarrassed to negotiate with my father. I'm embarrassed to get the best market price. I'm just going to give it to him for whatever he asked for because it's my father. Even for my son, he inflated the price. And so I just entertained him and said, okay, maybe he needs the extra money. Here it is. And now I'm coming to this third party who wants to buy it from me, and the price is inflated. So I have to tell you, look, I bought this car from my son at this rate. So now you understand. Okay, maybe this isn't the actual market value of this sale item. So that's the issue when it comes to testimony, one whose testimony is inadmissible. It is valid if purchased from, meaning I, who am going to sell it to you, I purchased it from one whose testimony is inadmissible for them, meaning me. Or he says at an inflated price as a hila. Okay, and a hila is like a trick. It's a stratagem to circumvent a legal code. If the price has been inflated due to this hila, and then I turn and sell this item to you, the price is inflated because that item was used as a tool or a trick. Like, for example, if somebody owes me money, okay, they owe me $1,000, for example. Well, let's say, yeah, they owe me $1,000. Let's say they owe me $1,000, and I can't get it back from you for some reason. You're just like constantly delaying your repayment. Like, look, I need to collect. You're like, just wait. And then finally I go, you know what? I need to figure out how to recover some of this value. And so I go, listen, sell me your laptop. Or you're going to sell it. You offer to see, you're trying to sell your laptop. It's an $800 laptop. And I go, hey, look, I'll buy the laptop for $1,000. Okay? And then you go, okay, it's above market value, but I'm buying it for $1,000. And when we sell it, I say, okay, you owed me the $1,000. Now I got that. So what happened essentially? I got my money back, but I also got the laptop. Yeah. It was me doing that was not a genuine transaction. It was a way for me to get my money. It happened. And now what happens is I got this laptop, and Abu Maher wants to buy a laptop, and I say, he says he wants a murabaha, or he wants a tawli or something like that. And now he has to know what the price I paid for it. So what do I tell him? $1,000. So the price was originally $800, and now it was inflated because this is a hila. It's a little workaround, okay? I did that, and now I've inflated the price. So basically, Abu Mahar is going to overpay for the on the market price because of the hila. So I would have to tell him, look, it's $1,000, but this was the circumstances under which I bought it. Do you still want to buy it? This type of structured contract that you want it to tawliya, meaning you're going to buy it at the price I bought it for? Then I'd have to let him know so he would understand, look, it's probably over market, it's over market value. If he comes to find out and I didn't tell him, he later finds out, hey, look, they sold me this laptop for $1,000, and I come to find out that you actually bought it for $1,000 because you were trying to recover a debt. I'm gonna cancel my transaction because you've basically taken advantage of me in this case, right? So that's the second issue that Imam Bahuti highlights here. Another one is due to buyer-specific preference, such as purchasing a house adjacent to one's own house. Okay, so this is where the seller may take advantage of the buyer because they know the buyer has some type of interest in a characteristic of the sale item. He wants to buy this house for his son or a family member, so he would more than likely be willing to pay more, an inflated price. I could misrepresent the price and he wouldn't question it because he desires the place for its particular qualities. He wants it not because it's there, but because it's next to his house. It's not like the location is of any more significant value to anyone else. It's only significant to him. Right? Location is important, right? If you buy a beachfront property, it's going to be at a much higher market value than a property in town. That's the nature of real estate market. But if that location at the beachfront property is something about it which is attractive to me only, and it is able to inflate the price, then in that case, we got a situation in which I could find out later and I could rescind the sale. And then he says sells a part of a bulk item, a bulk sale based on its proportional price while the items are not uniform commodities. So in this case, what he's talking about is somebody purchases items bulk, and let's say they purchase 10 items in a bulk sale for $1,000, which would make the proportional price for each item, how much? $100, right? 10 items, $1,000. The proportional price per item is $100. But because the items are not uniform commodities, meaning they're not all, it's not 100, it's not like these, a bunch of these, it's different. There's one computer, there's one remote, there's one, So it means here that the value of these things aren't the same within that bulk sale. And what I've done is try and sell it to you at a bulk sale, proportional to the price, not to the value of the items. So I sold you something like this for $100. I said, look, I paid $100 for it, proportionally. That's not the value of this. You see? Because that $1,000 bulk sale had a laptop that was $500, had a phone, had a this, had a remote, whatever. That's the concept here, is that I have misrepresented the price by giving it the proportional value per item as opposed to the item's actual worth. If they were all the same commodity, then the proportional price reflects the value of each item. Because I got 100 remotes, which means they're all the same thing, and so the proportional price reflects the price that was actually paid for this one individual item here. So if you don't disclose that to me, the fact that it was a mixed bag, that's why you ended up paying that much for this item, then I can rescind if I come to find that out. In all these cases, the buyer may either rescind or retain the sale, as it falls under the category of tadlis. It's a type of deception. Okay? He goes on and he says, وَأَمَّا بَيْءُ الْمُرَابَحَةِ وَنَحْوُهُ إذا بان خلاف إخباره سقط زائد وقسطه من ربح وأخذه مشتر بالباقي وأجل في مؤجل لا خيار وما يزاد في ثمن أو مثمن أو خيار زمن الخيارين أو يؤخذ أرشا لعيب أو لجناية عليه يلحق بعقد ويخبر به وإن أخبرنا بالحال فحسن لا نماء ونحوه. So here he says in murabaha, and we've discussed that a little bit, and similar sales, we've introduced the concept of murabaha and the other sales here. If there is a discrepancy in what was disclosed, any excess and its share of profit are nullified, and the buyer takes it for the remainder. If deferred, it remains deferred without option. Any increase in price, sale item, or option during the options period, or any compensation taken for a defect or damage is appended to the contract and must be disclosed. If the actual state, excluding any profits or similar benefits, is disclosed, it is preferable. So the passage here is explaining what happens in a murabaha sale. Remember, the murabaha is a profit margin sale. We know what the original cost is, and we know how much is being added to that for the profit margin. Or the other base, the trust-based sales, right? When the seller's disclosed cost price differs from reality, the core principles are, number one, if the seller overstates the cost price, any excess amount must be deducted from the agreed upon sale price. Any profit margin tied to that excess must be deducted as well. The buyer keeps the item for the remaining corrected price. If the sale was on credit, like it was for deferred payments, the new corrected price remains deferred. The payment terms do not change. The buyer does not have the option to rescind the sale. They simply pay the corrected price. Any additional factors affecting the contract, like price increases, changes in the item, or contractual options introduced during the options period, remember we have that options period at the beginning, becomes part of the contract and must be disclosed. Compensation received for defects or damages also becomes part of the contract and must be disclosed. Disclosure is encouraged in some instances if the seller truthfully discloses everything except profits, like there was a profit that generated from this item during that period of time. He doesn't have to, it's preferable. So let's look at some examples to understand some of this in like a Zayd and Amr type of a scenario, as we like to do. So overestimating the cost price or overstating. Zayd purchases a car for $10,000. He sells it to Amr. And basically he's going to have a 10% profit margin. They agree upon that. Because I bought it for $12,000. Zayd bought it for 10. Now he tells Amr, I bought it for 12. So I'm selling it to you for $13,200. That gives us the 10%. Later, Amr discovers the actual cost price was 10. So there's a correction that needs to happen. The extra $2,000 is deducted from the sale price. So instead of 12, we now have 10. The profit is also adjusted. Okay, original profit calculation was 10%. That gave us $1,200. Now we're going to correct that to $1,000. Amr only pays $11,000, which is $10,000, the original cost price, plus his profit margin that we agreed upon, which would be $1,000. So he pays $11,000 instead of $13,200. The outcome, the sale remains valid, but Amr pays the corrected amount. Deferred sale is that same similar situation. As the first example, Amr's paying in installments over a year. When the mistake is discovered, the new lower price still follows the same payment plan. The price situation is all adjusted. The sale price is corrected, but the payment schedule that they agreed upon is retained. Another example would be price increase or compensation during the option period. So Zayd sells Amr a used car he purchased for $10,000 at a price of $11,000 with a 10% markup. During the option period, Zayd gets a $500 repair reimbursement. It's Zayd's car. During the option period, he gets a reimbursement from the manufacturer. Are we following? Zaid said he paid $10,000. He's going to sell it for $11,000 because there's a 10% profit margin. That's his $1,000. They agreed on the murabaha. I paid $10,000. I want to make $1,000 on the sale, or 10%. Okay, bet. Now, during the options period, Zaid gets this reimbursement from the manufacturer. This $500 must be added to the contract and disclosed, which basically will adjust the price. So the final price is adjusted to reflect the amount that Zaid paid after deduction of the reimbursement. So that means if Zaid paid $10,000 and gets a reimbursement from the manufacturer, how much did he actually pay for the car? $9,500, right? The original cost of him, that he had to pay now is dropped because he got $500 back. So Zaid originally claimed he bought the car for $10,000, but then received $500, which now effective cost is $9,500. The profit calculation must be adjusted. So original profit of 10% of $10,000 was $1,000. Corrected profit 10% of $9,500 is $950. The final sale price now is $10,450 instead of $11,000. Right? So the rules that you see here being applied, they ensure trust, fairness in these murabaha type negotiations or deals, and they prevent deception while maintaining valid contracts and safeguarding both parties. So that gives you just an introduction to the concept here, what we're looking at. Okay. The seventh type of option pertains to disputes over the price, the currency, like the currency type, if we're paying in dollars or shillings. Okay. Wooden nickels. Okay, whatever. We're going to debate over the currency. We're going to debate over the terms, stipulations, the sale item itself or quantity, the sale item's delivery and payment, as well as debtors purchasing items from their creditor. So he says, السابع إذا اختلف البائعان في ثمن ولا بينة تحالفا ثم لكل فسخه إن لم يرضى أحدهما بقول الآخر. The seventh type occurs when the parties dispute the price, they lack evidence, and swear an oath. That's what happens. Dispute the price, this is how it goes. They dispute the price, lack evidence, and swear an oath. That's when the seventh type occurs. Dispute the price, lack evidence to support the dispute, and then they end up swearing an oath. Either may annul the sale if dissatisfied with the other's claim. So if the seller and buyer, their heirs, or one party and the heirs of the other disagree over the price, such as when the seller claims it was sold for 100 while the buyer claims it was for 80, and neither has evidence, or their evidence contradicts, they must both swear an oath to strengthen their claim. And if they both swear the oath, then they can walk away. So the example would be Zayd sells a car to Amr. So they have a verbal, transaction, but later they disagree on the price when it comes time to, conclude. They disagree on the price. Zayd claims the price was $12,000. Amr insists it was only $10,000. There's no written contract. There's no witnesses. We don't have any evidence. In such a case, the seller swears first that they did not sell for the claimed price, but for their own stated price. So Zayd's going to make an oath that he sold it for $12,000. Then the buyer swears the same regarding their own claim. They'll take an oath, nope, it was sold to me for $10,000. Either party may annul the sale unless one accepts the other's claim. And this applies similarly to leases as well. One accepts the other's claim, or one swears while the other refuses to take an oath, the contract remains in effect, right? So again, in order for this to be in effect, they dispute over the price, they don't have sufficient evidence to support their claim, and they swear an oath. La bayyinata tahalafa. They both swear the oath. So if one takes the oath and the other doesn't, the sale's still valid. We're going to go with the one that took the oath, the other refused to take an oath. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. All right, let's swear on Allah. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't think so. What does that mean normally? Either they're uncertain, they're like, yeah, I'm not that certain actually, or, yeah, I didn't actually say the right thing. It could be like, yeah, it's not worth me because I can't remember. So in that case, we would just go with the one that took the oath. We would take their word for it. Otherwise, if they both took an oath, then we would say, hey, you guys can either agree on doing one or the other, or either one of you can walk away from the sale. No problem. He says, وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفَ فِي صِفَتِهِ أُخِذَ نَقْدُ الْبَلَدِ ثُمَّ غَالِبُهُ ثُمَّ الْوَسَطِ. If they dispute its form, the local currency is used, then the most common, then the median. So here we're talking about the type of currency. Okay, so if they disagree on the form of payment, the currency in use in that particular location is taken. And this is presumed to be the basis of the agreement. If multiple currencies circulate, the most commonly used currency prevails. And if there is no dominant currency, the mid-value currency is taken. This applies if one party makes this claim under oath. If both claim otherwise, they must swear oaths as mentioned before. Okay? So an example of this would be that Zaid sells, let's change it up, a laptop this time. We've already done a laptop sale for the Hila. Now we're going to argue over the currency. Sells a laptop to Amr for $500, but doesn't specify the currency. He doesn't say $500 or 500 British pounds in the event that both of them were being used. Zaid claims, remember, this has to be where the currency, it's possible. There's a possibility. Zaid claims it was 500 British pounds. Amr says $500. Zaid says 500 British pounds. I think the pound is a little stronger than the dollar currently. So Zaid is maybe trying to get up a little bit. Amr says, no, it's $500. Resolution is that the local currency is assumed first. So in the event that the local currency is US dollars, Zaid's claim to 500 British pounds, it's not gonna hold up. Multiple currencies are commonly used, right? So we're in a place where both the dollar and the pound are circulating, but one of them is dominant. The most common one applies in this situation. If there's no clear majority, then the middle value is taken. In the event there's numerous currencies in circulation, this is something that's a bit more theoretical today, considering that where you are, there is a local currency. In just about every country, at least to my knowledge, there's not a country that doesn't have a local standardized currency, right? Whereas beforehand, you might have currencies that it's like actual coinage and things that were in circulation. Multiple different currencies are floating through the market. And in that case, specifying the type would be very important here. So you can avoid discrepancies in the characteristics or the specificity of the actual currency. He says, وَفِي أَجَلٍ أَوْ شَرْطٍ فَقَوْلُ مَنْ يَنْفِيهِ كَمُفْسِدٍ. He says, if they dispute a deferred term or stipulation, the claim of the one denying it prevails as with invalidating conditions. So here we're talking about a disagreement over a deferred payment term or a stipulated condition, right? A term would be like, we're going to pay over a certain amount of time. If there's another type of condition that's added here, shart, and we talked about shurut fil bay'. We started disagreeing over what terms we agreed upon, like a mortgage or a guarantor or those specifics related to those things. The claim of the one who denies the condition is accepted under oath, as the default assumption is the absence of such conditions. Right? The default is that the sale concludes halan. That's the default in sales, is that you sell it and it's done. The default in sales is you sell it and there's no extra stipulations or conditions to your sale. So someone that denies it, they take the baseline ruling, they occupy the baseline ruling, basically. Okay, so for example, Amr buys a motorcycle from Zayd. Amr claims the price included a 6-month payment plan. Zayd insists it was a one-time upfront payment. The resolution is that the denial prevails because the default in sales is immediate payment. All right, so that gives you just a brief idea of what we're talking about there. The next part he says, وَفِي عَيْنٍ مَبِيعٍ أَوْ قَدْرِهِ فَقَوْلُ بَائِعٍ. If it occurs regarding the specific item or its quantity, the seller's claim is accepted. Okay, so if they dispute the specific item sold, such as whether it's a particular laptop or vehicle or something, or its quantity, whether they're buying 2 or 3, such as whether it's, you know, a certain speed or has certain characteristics, the seller's claim is accepted, as they are liable for the item in the first case and denying an excess claim in the second. So if Zayd claims he sold a red Toyota Corolla and Amr insists it was a blue Toyota Camry, the seller's claim prevails. Zayd, he owns the vehicle. It's in his care. It's under his liability. I mean, it's his to sell. And someone now is claiming that, no, he didn't sell me the red Toyota Corolla. He sold me the blue Toyota Camry. Wait a minute. I'm the seller. I have control of the item being sold. I know exactly which item I'm selling. Right? That's going to be the nature of that issue there, that dispute. Or if they dispute over quantity, Zayd claims he sold 5 tires. Amr insists it was 6 tires. The seller's claim prevails. He's in control of the inventory. I have 5 I sold you, and now you're trying to add another tire into it to get an extra little wheel, right? وَإِنْ أَبَى كُلٌّ التَّسْلِيمَ حَتَّى يَقْبِضَهُ الْآخَرُ وَالثَّمَنُ عَيْنٌ نُصِبَ عَدْلٌ يَقْبِضُ مِنْهُمَا وَيُسَلِّمُ الْمَبِيعَ ثُمَّ الثَّمَنَ. If both refuse to deliver until the other does, right? I'm not going to give you the cash until you give me the item. You got a standoff of sorts. And the payment is specified. A just party takes possession of both, delivering the item first, and then the payment. So if neither party is willing to hand over their obligation first, like the seller refusing to deliver the sale item until they receive payment, and the buyer refusing to pay until they receive the item, then if the payment was a specified sum, right, they know exactly what they're giving in payment, an impartial third party is appointed to take possession of both items. The item and the payment together, then that third party will deliver the item first and then hand over the payment to the seller. And this is the common transactional practice. Okay? Right, so Zayd refuses to hand over the car until after Amr pays. Amr refuses to pay until he gets the car. The resolution is that there's an arbitrator that's appointed, third-party mediator perhaps from the court or through mutual agreement. They take both the money and they take the car. The car is given to Amr, and then the payment's given to Zayd. Transactions concluded, all is well. Standoff ended. He goes on, he says, وَإِنْ كَانَ دَيْنًا حَالًا بِيَدِهِ أُجْبِرَ بَيْعٌ ثُمَّ مُشْتَرٍ وإن كان دون مسافة قصر حجر عليه في كل ماله حتى يحضره وإن كان بعيدا أو المشتري مفلسا فلبائع الفسخ. So if the payment is a due debt in the buyer's possession, the seller is compelled first, then the buyer. If it is within the distance permitting shortening, the buyer's assets are restricted until it is produced. If it is far or the buyer is insolvent, the seller may annul the sale. So if the payment was a debt and immediately available in the buyer's possession, the seller is compelled to deliver the item first, and the buyer's right is attached to the physical item. Afterward, the buyer is compelled to pay immediately since they have access to the funds. So an example would be that Amr already owes Zayd money from a previous deal. He agrees to buy a bicycle on credit. So we've got a history here, okay? Amr already owes some money. Now he's going to buy a bicycle on credit. The seller, Zayd, is forced to hand over the bicycle first. Then Amr must pay his existing debt. If the debt is present in the city but needs to be retrieved from a short distance away, the buyer's assets are restricted, including the purchased item, until they present the payment that's due, to prevent them from disposing of their assets in a way that would harm the seller. So we're taking into account both sides here, and we don't want things to get worse. So if Amr promises to bring cash from home, and Zayd doesn't trust him and refuses to hand over the sale item, the resolution is that if Amr's house is close, within the distance permitting shortened prayers, his assets may be frozen until payment is secured. You can hold all things. You got to go get payment. If the debt is at a distant location, a journey of travel exemption, the first one I should have said, within that distance, within the distance, meaning you're not far enough to shorten. It's within the distance permitting shortening and combining. Within it means it's not a far distance. The next one is a journey which permits that shortening. All right? If it's that far away that you have to go, basically you have to travel to go get it, or the buyer's found to be insolvent, meaning they don't have any money, the seller has the right to annul the sale due to their inability to obtain payment. Same applies to a lease where the rent is due immediately. So here we're looking at trying to preserve the rights of the seller. He's already owed money, and now this guy is trying to buy on credit again, basically going to put him further into the hole, meaning me as the seller. You're putting me into a financial bind because you're on credit already. You owe me money. Now you're trying to buy more credit. You're just taking the mick. You're taking the advantage, right? Amr promises to pay, but the money's in another country. For example, he says, look, man, I'm good for the money. I've got $5,000 in Kenya right now. The thing is, see, it's in currency. I can't wire it because it's not in the bank. But I'm going to get it for you. And you know me. I've already got a tab with you. You're like, okay, buddy. Okay. You can say, no, no sale. I'm annulling the sale. I'm not allowing this. I'm not allowing this to go all the way to Kenya for your currencies. Yeah. Or you find out, look, I'm actually broke. Is it actually, I heard you're bankrupt. It's in the news. I don't know. Found out. You lost it all. At that point, you can rescind the sale so that you don't have to entertain me and put yourself into financial burden. All right, so the principle here, these principles, all of them essentially, are ensuring fairness in sale transactions. They resolve disputes in a systematic approach. And this, of course, is governed by Islamic contract law. The last one that he mentions, this is the last option. Okay, there's 8 of these options. This is number 8, الثامن خيار للخلف في الصفة والتغير ما تقدمت رؤيته. So here it's the 8th type, and this is the option for discrepancy in description and change in a previously seen item. So the 8th type is the option that you can exercise to rescind the sale due to discrepancy in description, which applies when the seller specifies an item with particular attributes and then it doesn't end up matching the stated description. Right, I'm going to sell you a blue Toyota Camry, and then when it's time to get the item, it turns out to be a red Toyota Corolla. Or I'm going to sell you a 2024, and then you find out that it's a 2023. That doesn't match the described item. And in this event, you can rescind the sale. Or if there's a change to the item which has previously been seen. You saw the vehicle, and then basically you came to terms. I'll be back next week to pick it up, and I'll pay you. Sale's done. It's just a matter of now completing the process. You've agreed. Remember, we agree. Once you agree, the sale's concluded. Once you walk away from the majlis, now all you got to do is pay, and you got to receive your item. So when you come back, the item that you saw is now changed. There's a change that's happened to it, right? You can rescind the contract. And you can say, nope, this is not what I saw when I was here last time. Okay? So that gives you a basic introduction to some of these options. And that basically concludes this section of the textbook just before Ramadan. And we'll pick up here at some point in the future to continue looking more at the business contracts, laws, and ethics. Jazakallah khair for your patience and attentive listening. Until next time, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa akhiru da'wana. Alhamdulillah.